What's up, YouTube? This is CJ.
And Sarah.
It's a Wednesday, and that means it's time for another Keto
Conversations.
So let's get started. Alright, so this week we are talking about
FAQs.
FAQs.
Frequently Asked Questions.
Okay. Frequently Asked Questions about the keto diet. We are, when we do these keto conversations, every week we try to think of new topics, but inevitably we're going to probably circle back around to some topics more than once.
Some basic topics.
Some basic topics more than once, because we've always got new people finding us. We've always got people at different points in their keto journey. Sometimes it's just difficult to figure out what to talk about, and we've got some other ideas on some things we might try. But this week we're going to go over some frequently asked questions, or FAQs, about the keto diet. We are going to, why don't we talk about where we got this from?
Sure.
And why the sources, we think this is a good source.
We are going to be referencing the Diet Doctor site, and that is run by Dr. Andreas Einfeld, and he is in Sweden. And he's been doing this for a number of years. He practiced actually as a physician. He still is a doctor, but he actually had a private practice and was just a primary care physician in Sweden. But then he decided, instead of helping 5,000 people over his lifetime, that he would reach out and try and help people via the internet and reach a lot more people and help them with their diabetes and their obesity and things like that. So he founded this website, and it's nice because it's kind of a database of all things low carb / ketogenic, and he has all kinds of information on here, lots of references. It's nice because you can get free information. You don't have to join, but
lots of free information.
You can join his website, and it's a very low cost monthly fee. I think it's like $9 a month. And then additionally, he does not have any advertisements on his website. So those are kind of some parameters that might help you understand that this is a valuable source, somebody that is reliable, because they're not just in it for the money.
So the site is thedietdoctor.com. I'm not sure we actually said the name of the site, but thedietdoctor.com. And
so even though we're going to be touching on these points, there is additional information for almost every frequently asked question that we're going to be discussing. Yes. So if you wanted further information, you could go on the site and read more articles or read more case
Yeah,
studies.
because we're only going to go over 5 different frequently asked questions.
More than that, of course.
There's a lot more than 5, and then within some of these, there's links to other articles that Sarah just mentioned. So again, we are all about, you will find that we think it's important that you get some self-education yourself.
Definitely, and continuing education.
And continuing education, because we are.
Yes.
And we just encourage you, if you're going to do keto, live the keto lifestyle, even just trying the keto diet, that you find out information. And
that you have a source.
Yeah, that you have a source where you can get some good information from. So we're going to be referencing from the dietdoctor.com. And we're going to go over just 5 points. And one of the first points is, what is the keto diet? And then we combine that with, what is ketosis? Alright, so the keto diet, you jump in, of course, as usual, is,
mow right over
is a low carb diet.
Yes, it's extra low carb.
It's extra low carb. One of the questions we're going to also go over is, what's the difference between low carb and keto?
Which even though I've been doing keto / low carb for the last 2 years, I have wondered this and haven't really thought about it until now. So I learned something too.
So the keto diet is a low carb diet, very low carb diet, with the goal of getting you into ketosis, a state of ketosis. And to achieve this, you do that by reducing your carbs to a very low level.
Usually under 20 net carbs.
Under 20 net carbs a day.
And that your protein is also moderate.
Yes, with moderate protein. So that's one of the distinctions between keto and low carb. Right. And again, we'll cover that more. And so ketosis is...
Well, the other thing before we hit ketosis, the other thing is that it's also usually high in dietary fat. Generally saturated fat. Not that the low carb diet is not, but generally the ketogenic diet is a little higher in fat.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there's more focus on that.
Right, and that the fat part of it is also one of the things, like we're just going to discuss now, is that it helps you to achieve the ketosis. That is what we're discussing now.
Okay, so when we're not doing the keto diet, or when we're just eating a normal standard American diet, or wherever you are, your body is being fueled
by carbs. Which turn into glucose. So not just carbs, but sugar. Sugar is a carb.
Sure. And so when you reduce your carbs, what will happen is then your body will begin to need fuel.
Right, and your body cannot burn fat directly. That's not how it's made. So your body needs to burn ketones. So the fat then turns into ketones, and your body burns the ketones. And actually it's preferential to ketones over glucose. Your body does make a certain amount of glucose on its own without carbohydrates.
Right.
So not eating carbs. Carbs are not an essential nutrient. They are not an essential food group. You do not have to have carbs to survive.
And that's probably goes beyond popular belief in our society.
So it's the process of fueling your whole body with the fat that has been made into ketones, and that is what ketosis is.
And the liver is what converts the fat into ketones.
Right.
And so, so again, the keto diet, the goal is to get you into ketosis so that you can then. So again, you're changing your fuel source.
Right, because
you're changing from.
Preferentially, why should you be burning carbs or sugar and not your own fat? The whole reason that we eat food is to store a certain amount of that for later.
Right.
So why would we never want to tap into that, what we have eaten and stored for later? Right. That's how we get overweight, is we're not tapping in to what we've eaten. And so that's why ketosis is a good thing. Yeah, and
and you know, this is kind of something interesting as we were reading through some of this tonight and preparing. So for if you're doing keto as, I guess, a short-term diet, you may want to, because you want to burn your own fat versus having so much fat, but you kind of need fat as a lever to initiate this process so that you can begin to...
So it's kind of a balancing act, deciding what you need this for. If your parameters are you're type 2 diabetic, then maybe the way you do the keto diet would be different than someone who's just obese and is using it as a weight loss method. Are you talking about the amount of fat that you consume?
The amount of fat that you would consume.
The amount of dietary fat that you actually eat. Because sometimes if you're getting too much dietary fat and your goal is weight loss, then sometimes that can hinder the fat coming off of your own reserves.
Right.
And so that's where you need to decide how much fat. And I've heard time and time again that fat is a lever. Yes. And so you decide how much fat. It's not always necessarily macros either. A lot of times it's based on your satiety and your own personal needs. Okay. So you shouldn't be pile driving the fat, is what we're saying.
Right.
If you need a little extra fat to help keep you satisfied, that's one thing. But just consuming fat for fat's sake is not necessary on the ketogenic diet. So now we're on to frequently asked question number 2, which is the ketogenic diet safe?
And you're going to see me kind of going through my iPad just because we have notes here, So is the keto diet safe?
It's very safe.
It's very safe.
There's 3 parameters that you need to consider as far as safety if you are under one of these 3 things.
Right. So
the first one?
The first one is if you're on medication for diabetes.
Right. And so that's metformin, that's insulin, whatever you're taking for diabetes. And why would that be so?
Well, one of the issues with that is, especially if you're on type 2 diabetic and you're taking metformin or some other type of medication, keto can have such a drastic effect on your body so quickly that you will be taking too much medication. You will need to get that medication
can make yourself sick.
Adjusted. And so that's why it's important, especially if you're taking diabetic medications, to
be in contact with your doctor.
Be in contact with your doctor so you can monitor. They can monitor
those taking you off
because you will be surprised how fast things will change once you start eliminating the carbs and you start getting into this. it will change, and that is why it's very important for you to.
And that's also the second point is if you have high blood pressure and you're on
Yeah.
high blood pressure medication, because once you start following a lifestyle like this, you can fast track into low blood pressure if you're on medication. And so a lot of times that also has to be monitored. So if you're taking diabetic medication or if you're taking high blood pressure medication, you need to be aware that the ketogenic diet can drastically and quickly change your circumstances. That's why it's good to be in contact with your primary care provider and make sure that they're testing you.
Yeah.
And CJ and I want to say right here, at this moment, we are not doctors. Yeah. We follow the ketogenic lifestyles. I have never had any serious health concerns. CJ did have diabetes, and he was in contact with his doctor to remove him from his medications as his markers improved.
And to adjust my medication as
But we are not doctors, and we cannot tell you what to do or how to handle things. We can only make suggestions and encourage you to work with your own primary care provider.
Exactly. And then if you're a type 1 diabetic, you have to also, you may always need to take insulin. But again, if you're practicing keto, it can be
you might have to adjust.
You may have to adjust the amount of insulin you take because you may not need to take as much, and that's again another reason that you need to, constantly be in touch with your doctor if you're going to do keto. And then the last one was, and I kind of clicked over to this, was if you're breastfeeding. Now, of course, I've never breastfed, so I didn't know anything about that.
Breastfeeding requires, I breastfed all 3 of my children. Breastfeeding requires, number one, a lot of calories. You burn upwards to 500 extra calories a day. Also, it's almost all glucose because you are feeding your child from your reserves. Right. So if you are not taking in enough of what you need and you're giving it to your child, then you can go into ketoacidosis or something very dangerous for yourself because you've completely tapped out your glucose stores. And so that is the third reason that you would maybe ask more questions or discuss it with your doctor before you go ahead and do the ketogenic diet while you're breastfeeding.
Right.
There are some doctors who say that the low carb diet can be fine if you're breastfeeding because you're taking in a few more carbs than the ketogenic diet, because usually low carb it can be more than 20 grams and still be low carb.
So one of the things he says here is to be safe for and this is specifically for breastfeeding, to be safe, choose a more moderate low carb diet so, if you're breastfeeding.
Like upwards to at least 50 grams or more.
At least 50 grams of carbs or more per day.
Right.
And so, and again, this is another one of those articles where it has links
to more studies, to more information. So if this fits you as a person and you are pregnant or breastfeeding or any of those things, then there's a lot more information that can be discussed on his website that you could then take to your doctor if you feel like it's something that you want to do, but you want to get all the facts, then this site is very good for those kinds of things.
Yeah, because again, we will put links to this article, and then of course then you can access all the other articles as well. So the third point is how long, or the third question is how long can someone stay on the keto diet? And the answer is as long as you want to.
Yeah. It's been 2 years for CJ and I. For Dr. Enfeld, it's been like 15, going on 20. Same for Dr. Westman. A lot of doctors who practice and who are proponents of the ketogenic or low carb lifestyle have been on it for several decades or more. So,
and it's a lifestyle.
Right, and more studies are coming out about the long-term value of a low carb diet. As long as you feel well and your health markers are well, then there's no reason to go back to the standard American diet.
I think I read a quote, or I read something by Jimmy Moore this week. A lot of people find that if they do the keto diet, a lot of people have found that they can stick with the keto diet a lot easier than they have found with other things.
I found that true. I've been on several diets in my lifetime.
I have as well, and I have found that keto feels like easier.
It's more sustainable.
It's more sustainable for me. I will say that sometimes with keto, after you, especially when you first start, you might feel like, wow, I can't just go get a lot of stuff really fast. But actually, that's changing more and more as well. We're seeing more and more keto.
The popularity of it is working in our favor.
It is driving there to be more accessible keto, quick keto foods.
Costco's carrying more things.
Yes.
Yeah, more fast food restaurants are catering to keto. Slim Fast is making keto stuff. Not that we're necessarily driving you to that, but it's just going along with your point in that it is becoming more accessible.
Right. But one of the things that Jimmy Moore, and if you don't know who Jimmy Moore is, Jimmy Moore wrote, he co-wrote the book, what's the name of the book?
Keto Clarity.
Keto Clarity, which is one of the...
which is one of the very first books
about
keto.
About keto.
Yeah.
And one of the things he talked about this week is, the whole Jillian Michaels thing has been in all over the... I don't know if it's been on the news.
Did you see that meme that somebody put on... It was either on Instagram or Facebook, and it was their local Walmart. And on the clearance, it had all Jillian Michaels DVDs, and they're like, this is totally coincidence, but...
Yeah,
I just thought it was cute.
But one of the things that he talked about was he had got something from... I don't know if it was a tweet or a message from Bob Harper, who is another
celebrity dietitian.
Celebrity dietitian, trainer,
personal chef,
fitness person,
guru.
And I don't think Bob Harper is necessarily a proponent of the keto diet, but one of the things he did say is if it's something that you can stick with and that you can be successful with, then you should by all means
sustainability.
By all means do it, because that's half the battle right there, is just being able to stick with it. And one of the things that we do on our channel is try to show you that you can keto can be sustainable and that you can stick with it as long as you want to for the rest of your life.
And it's not like the calories in, calories out, like a low calorie diet. Because maybe if you have a lot of willpower, you could possibly sustain that for a length of time. But it can end up damaging your metabolism, and that's just not the case with a ketogenic diet, because you're not lowering your basal metabolic rate. So there are other things that maybe people might consider sustainable, but in the long term, the ketogenic diet does not have negative side effects.
The next point is ketosis safe for diabetics? So that's we kind of touched on some of this already, and the answer is yes. It can be a powerful treatment for reversing type 2 diabetes, but again, you need to be mindful to have, especially if you're taking medications, to monitor
because you are going to rapidly require a reduction in your meds.
Yes, and when we say rapidly, we mean
rapidly, like within a week. It's fast.
So. Yeah.
It's fast. I was listening to a podcast with Dr. Jason Fung, and of course he's a proponent of fasting, but he also is a proponent of the ketogenic diet. But I believe he did a case study with 85 individuals, and he was able to take all 85 individuals down completely off their medications within 18 days. So it's fast. When we say fast, it's fast. So that's why we are encouraging people who have these parameters to definitely be in contact with your physician, because we definitely don't want to see anyone get ill because they're taking too much insulin or metformin. Yeah,
and again, type 1 diabetics, you've got a kind of a different issue because of the the need for insulin, and so again, you need to monitor it closely in the levels that you need to take. But to answer the question, is ketosis safe if you're diabetic? The answer is
both for type 2 and type 1.
And for type
as long as you are that you're aware of your medication situation.
Right. All right. So what is the difference between the low carb diet and the keto diet? Well, the first thing would be the keto is a lot stricter as far as there's more emphasis on there's a sort of a narrow window as far as the amount of carbs you have versus low carb.
Keto is like low carb on steroids.
Yeah, so
it's hyper low carb.
So when you talk about keto, 20 grams of carbs per
right,
day.
because low carb, I guess the standard for low
less.
carb is like between 50 and 100 carbs
Yeah.
is still considered low carb.
Right.
So, but that's not considered ketogenic. The ketogenic diet is usually under 20 net carbs. Some people even do total carbs. So that's completely up to you, but
Right.
you know, net carbs. So
And so the difference basically is just kind of the emphasis is a bit different. In keto, it's moderate protein.
right.
Versus
Low carb is more where you can have higher amounts of protein.
You can have higher amounts of protein.
Is totally a personal, once again, it's a personal preference.
And I apologize for looking at it. I actually was trying to find the link to that so that I could see, just in case there was something that...
You're probably more than likely going to be in ketosis even if you're practicing a low carb diet, especially if you are a relatively healthy individual with not a lot of insulin resistance. So you can still be in ketosis and just be doing low carb and not be doing keto. So it all depends on your metabolic system.
And so the reason I wanted to make sure I got to the article here is with keto, you're relying your body, because it is so strict, you're relying that, so basically you want your body to burn the fat that it needs for your energy. Your fat.
So keto usually has a little more high fat than a low carb diet. Not that low carb can't have a lot of fat in it, but generally keto is considered like an extra strict low carb diet.
Yeah, and so they're both low carb diets.
They both are valid. They both work for people. They both can be done long term. It all depends on what your needs are. Like I said, whether you have insulin resistant or diabetes or anything like that, then, you know, you might choose one over the other. But they both are valid, they both are safe, and they both can be done long term.
Right. So hopefully we answered some of the questions. I hope we did a good job answering the questions for you. I guess if you have any other questions, I mean, you can throw them in the comments and we can try to answer. But again, we are going to put the links to this article, which again will link you to other articles. And this is a reputable source, a really reputable source for keto information.
Yes.
Dietdoctor.com is the where we're kind of referencing from. And again, we aren't doctors. We just have two folks who've done the keto diet and
well,
had
in the
success.
Diet Doctor, you can also find information in other languages. They have information in Spanish. They have information in, you know, the Norwegian languages. So it's also good if you maybe know somebody that, you know, English is not their primary language. They have a lot of good information in other languages also, and they have counselors.
And he also does a lot of good interviews.
Videos, free videos. Yeah. He interviews a lot of people. There's lots of before and after things in there that can be very encouraging and upbuilding. So it's just a good site. It's
a lot. I'm kind of clicking through. There's a lot of resources, a lot of videos,
and most of it is free. And like I said, what is not free, you know, is only like $8 or $9 a month. So it's not going to break the bank.
That's interesting that you said. See, I never knew about the cost. But you know, maybe I'll look into see.
I just listened to his Low Carb Houston talk. So Andreas Enfield was on there, and so I learned a lot more about the site.
Maybe I'll look at what the cost is. And
yeah, I'm pretty sure it's only like $8 or $9.
It's so good because it's a lot of good information, and I've watched him a lot on YouTube as well. Interviews that he's done with people, a lot of short videos as well, with people in the keto world or low carb world that's spreading the keto message all over the world, not just in the United States.
Yeah,
so,
and he does a lot of interviews with other doctors and specialists that are very popular in the keto world. Yeah. And it's good because there's things on his site for beginners, but then there's also things for those of us who've been practicing the keto lifestyle for a while. So
that's good to know.
Helps everybody.
Yeah, that's good to know. So anyway, this is our Keto Conversation segment. I think we have talked enough about this subject tonight. If you're new here, we do this segment every Wednesday. We talk about different keto topics or conversations. And on Sundays we do new recipes every Sunday. Last week we did the peanut butter candy with a chocolate ganache sauce.
Scrumptious.
This week we've got I think it's Super Bowl dips or something that's coming out. So we do again new recipes every Sunday. Consider subscribing. We would love to have you as part of our ketogenic family, and we are here every week.
Twice a week.
Twice a week, and we are all about trying to help you have success with keto. So thanks for watching, and we hope that you have a great rest of the week. Bye-bye. Peace.
Peace.